Flint, Michigan, once known as Buick City, and in horse and buggy days, Vehicle City. It was built on gritty factory floors and hard-earned paychecks. But in the 1990s, those opportunities were quickly disappearing. For a kid growing up there with no resources, no roadmap, you learned to find opportunity wherever you could.
We didn't come from money. We went to pick up boxes to sustain our quality of life growing up. If you understand that analogy, you get it. We didn't have a lot. Before welfare came in a digital form, there were boxes. You would stand in line and you would receive a box, and inside that box were the staples that you needed to sustain your family for a period of time.
Before he ever wore a uniform, Curtez Riggs was already learning how to hustle, collecting bottles after school just to get by. Then, one recruiter changed everything, but not with a big pitch or a loud voice.
He literally sat down with me. He showed me how the Army had changed his life. He wasn't a powerful speaker. He wasn't that individual that had to stand in front of the crowd or be the center of attention. What he did was he showed me the connective tissue between what he did and other people like me. And that caused me to see there's an opportunity for me where I can literally change my life.
That soft-spoken sergeant became Curtez's first example of real influence, and it planted a seed that would define his entire career.
So leadership is the process of influencing others, and that definition has stuck with me since I was a private at Fort Knox being smoked by a drill sergeant because I refused to say the definition the correct way. I got selected for recruiting duty. This was around 1999, 2000 timeframe, and then I went to the recruiting school.
As Curtez rose through the ranks as an Army recruiter, he learned that leadership isn't about being the loudest person in the room.
It helped me to realize that, it's okay to be in the background. I believed in delegation. I believed in empowering subordinate leaders. I developed, I nurtured, I impacted my subordinate leaders. And so it didn't require me to always be out front.
He calls it finding force multipliers, lifting others up and letting the mission move forward because of it. His skills as an influencer brought an unexpected reward.
And I was assigned back to my hometown. I was assigned back to my same recruiting station that I enlisted out of. I was sent to my same high school, now 4 years removed. And then I was now this influential leader wearing a uniform that was responsible for guiding the next generation of leaders into the ranks of the Army.
This philosophy led Curtez to found the Military Influencer Conference, now one of the largest professional networks in the military community, bringing together thousands of veterans, service members, and industry leaders. In this episode of Army Matters, retired First Sergeant Curtez Riggs shares how the lessons he learned in the Army, from mentorship to influence to building something bigger than himself, became the foundation for a new mission. For him, leadership was never about rank. And today, Riggs shares how boxing was an avenue to personal growth, how quiet leadership can create opportunity, and what alternative routes to success might look like. I'm Carrie Varuhaikis, and this is Army Matters.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Army Matters. I'm your co-host, the 15th Sergeant Major of the Army, Sergeant Major of the Army retired, Dan Dailey, and I am here with my very best friend,
your battle buddy, your podcast battle buddy, Lieutenant General retired Leslie C. Smith, the 66th Inspector General, and your Vice President for Leadership and Education here at the mighty Association of the United States Army. Hey, Dan.
Yes.
How you doing, brother?
I'm good. How was your 250th anniversary of America celebration?
It was good. I was trying to keep cool, man. It was hot. Was it hot up in PA?
It was hot.
Yeah.
It was hot. Yeah. Hey, what do you know about influencers, Les?
Other than the fact I consider myself one.
Who do you influence?
A lot of people. I influence you too.
You do.
I just wrote a book, so I'm definitely an influencer.
Yeah, I guess. If anybody reads it.
Yeah. Well, we know a few people from AUSA are gonna. Let's get a copy of the book. What is demographic? Yeah,
no.
Yeah, go ahead. Keep asking your next question.
You got let me ask questions.
Yeah, go ahead. I know you always got questions. Go ahead.
I got questions. Yes. What demographic or population do you think you influence the most?
Young military officers, soldiers that I've served with before, and people in the space. I mean,
in the space.
But if you've done well in your service, just like you're an influencer too, they look up to you, so you kind of influence them on your thoughts. Yeah. We all have different journeys, and yours ride is different than mine, but people want to emulate what we do.
Yeah. So you would consider yourself a military influencer then?
Yes. Do you consider yourself a military influencer?
Somewhat, yeah. But this guy, he's taking it to the next level.
Next level. I want to hear the whole story, man.
You know what the best part about it is?
What is it?
He's an NCO.
Yes, I agree. Yes. Non-commissioned officers develop us into who we are. We know non-commissioned officers are the bedrock of our Army. Without NCOs, we wouldn't be the Army or the nation that we are today.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I have the gentleman that started the Military Influencer Conference. His name is retired First Sergeant Curtez Riggs. Curtez, welcome to the show.
Sergeant Major, I really appreciate the invitation. Thank you, sir, also.
So, Curtez, help me out here. You're from Flint, Michigan. Tell us a little bit about growing up there. Did you play any sports in high school? And what influenced you to join the Army?
Yeah, so I'll take it back to the beginning if you don't mind. So, December 3rd, 1997, born to Lieutenant Curtez Riggs. No, I'm kidding. I'll fast forward a little bit.
Yeah.
We want to talk about the genesis of my Army story. Yeah. So at the core of it, Flint, the nickname of the city is Buick City. And Flint was heavily invested in the auto and manufacturing industry in the 90s and, also prior to that. Then in 1994, there was this thing called NAFTA that came in that essentially started to remove a lot of the opportunities that were created for, I would say, people like me. I come from a blue-collar family. The majority of my uncles were auto workers. So they did hard work. They would show up in a shop, they'd push a button, they'd crank something, they'd put a big piece of machinery on a conveyor belt, and they would push things through. And they were making great money back in the 80s and also the early 90s. So growing up for us, it was like, hey, you get your high school diploma, you have a guaranteed job in one of the factories. Nepotism was real for us because we were bred to become auto workers. The challenge was when NAFTA came about, those opportunities started to disappear. And so my great grandmother, she had 8 children. And I like to say that my aunts and uncles started to multiply like roaches. It put us in a situation where we had a substantial family.
How about rabbits, not roaches?
Once again, I'm from Flint, Michigan.
I got it.
So I'm used to certain critters growing up.
I understand. I'm from Atlanta. I can relate.
Yeah. So, as I think about that, we didn't come from money. We didn't come from resources. We were, essentially people from the community. We went to pick up boxes to sustain our quality of life growing up. If you understand that analogy, you get it. We didn't have a lot.
Yeah. Hold on now. Explain to our listeners, what do you mean by picking up boxes?
Before welfare came in a digital form, there were boxes. Like you would go stand in a line and you would receive a box. And inside that box were the staples that you needed to sustain your family for a period of time. So that was my life growing up. Okay. Christmas, I received another box. I got a sweatsuit. I got underwear, socks, and T-shirts, and I got a toy. That was life for me, you know? And so even though my uncles were doing their thing, they were kind of like, self-interested, right? They were looking out for themselves. My mom was a single parent, and her journey was significantly different.
Yeah. Yeah. So why did you decide to join the Army?
So when opportunities in Flint started to disappear, I started to recognize that I was a lackluster student. I didn't take high school seriously. I have never been one for higher education. So my goal was just literally to graduate high school. It had been embedded in me for a period of time. I also had an inner, what I'll refer to as like an inner hustler, because I didn't have much. I was constantly looking for ways to supplement. So in elementary all the way through middle school, I would pick up bottles after a baseball diamond. And so I found ways to do non-traditional things to supplement the things that I needed to elevate my quality of life. So as I was growing up, I had the odd job, but I didn't really find any traction. The first thing I did was went and can I say the word Marine on this show?
You can.
All right.
Yeah.
The first recruiter I went to see between my junior and senior year was a Marine Corps recruiter. And because I was fairly self-sufficient, incredibly street smart, I knew my way around. I walked into this Marine Corps office as a 17-year-old kid, and the first thing he did was ask me a question like, do you feel like you're a man? And of course, me and my cousin looked at him and said yes. He took off his jacket, he put it on my shoulders, and he said, "Now you look like a man." And me and my cousin looked this guy in the face and we laughed. We literally laughed our way out of his office, right? A few weeks later, I met a recruiter that became kind of like my first mentor. His name was Troy Brown, Staff Sergeant Brown. And Sergeant Brown didn't have to sell me. He walked me up to the Future Soldier Board. We used to have these boards in recruiting stations where a recruiter listed everybody that he put in. And so meeting Sergeant Brown at that point in time, I got to see that, he was my first example of influence. It was very subtle. What he did was he showed me the connective tissue between what he did and other people like me. And that caused me to see that, man, there's something here. There's an opportunity for me where I can literally change my life and put myself in a situation where I have an opportunity or a future doing something that I could see myself doing.
Okay. That's really cool.
Let's pull on that recruiter because he sounds like you mentioned, a big influence in your life. You still talk to him, huh?
We have kept in touch over the years. He was a dear friend, a key leader. He retired, I think, in 2021 or 2022, and the majority of his time he spent within the recruiting command.
Okay, so you joined the Army, right? And we didn't have very different childhoods. I grew up in the same thing in the Poconos, which was a steel industry. We were making the stuff that your family was making cars out of. And it all shut down around about the same time that I grew up. And a little bit different where we are up there in Poconos. It was 3 options when the factory shut down. That was coal mine, moonshine, or move on down the line. so I joined the Army.
You chose to move on down the line.
That's right. Move on down the line. So tell us about your just quickly, your tenure in service. You had a great career and you retired. Tell us about it.
Yeah, my first unit of assignment was Alpha Troop of the 1st of the 17th CAF at the 82nd Airborne Division.
Yeah, airborne, paratrooper.
Yeah. Yep. I spent about 3 years there. It was a great introduction to the military. Where I come from, typically as we think about why people join the military, most of us join for training, education, the monetary incentives. Service to country wasn't a big thing for me. But, for whatever reason, I found myself in a combat arms unit at Fort Bragg, one of 6 people of color inside of the entire unit. So it was a completely different experience for me. My first sergeant at the time was First Sergeant Troxel. So he was a great, phenomenal leader, also a mentor and a role model for me. My first 3 years, I was, at the 82nd Airborne Division. I remember my first lesson that he got from me. So I was a Golden Glover. You asked about sports earlier. So, Flint, I was pretty good with my hands. And I remember that, at Bragg, we had these annual post smokers. And there was also this magazine called Ring that was essentially listing every single ranked boxer across the country that was a Golden Glover.
So for the audience, let's describe them. These post smokers are really boxing club competitions on the Fort Bragg installation.
The smokers, during All-American Week, you essentially have a pipeline where before combatives was a thing, boxing was how units competed against one another. And so every unit put together a team, and then during these smokers, it would be a single or double elimination tournament. First Sergeant Troxel at that time was looking to put together a team to compete in this post smoker. And I kept telling him I didn't have any experience. I didn't know how to box. I wasn't interested. And this whole time, this guy had identified my name in his magazine, realized I was a soldier in his formation. And then he leaned on me every opportunity that he could get to convince me that I needed to step up and I needed to volunteer to be a part of this team. So, another example of influence, he influenced me by recognizing things about myself that I had no idea. So when I think about this magic word influence, my career has been shaped by people that have influenced me in ways that I didn't even take into consideration.
So your first duty station in the 82nd, can you tell our listeners, what did it feel like first making it through airborne school and then getting assigned to the 82nd and learning about what it meant to be a paratrooper?
Well, if If I could be blunt, I was on a power trip. I was in the best physical shape of my life. Going through airborne school for me was different. I had only flown once. I flew from Detroit, Michigan to Fort Knox, Kentucky, the first time I'd ever been on a flight. And the second time I was on an airplane, I was learning how to jump out of it. It taught me how to push myself. It taught me how to persevere. It taught me how to overcome my fear of heights. But most importantly, it made me feel a little bit more elite than the average service member. And so when I arrived at the 82nd Airborne Division, not only am I assigned to a combat arms unit, I felt like, I'm finally in a position where I belong. I'm finding like-minded individuals. We don't always agree. We don't always see the same way, but collectively, we're there for the same purpose. And that brotherhood was something I didn't have. So for the first time in my life, I'm around like-minded individuals who think like me, who are really concerned about the team, and we don't look alike. I came from an environment that everybody I knew looked like me. And so now it's completely the opposite. And for the first time in my life, I understand what it means to be a minority. There are some challenges involved with that. But the great thing is I had outstanding leaders who continued to rise and show up and make a difference in my life for me during my time.
So let's talk about leadership. You went on to have a 21-year career. And particularly you subscribe to the idea, as I do, that leaders eat last. What does that mean to you?
I'm going to say the word servant leadership. Leaders eat last is simply meaning that it's our responsibility, no matter, our age, our rank, or experience, to take care of those that are following in our footsteps. So, if we look at the literal definition of the term that you just mentioned, if we're standing in a line at chow, we literally eat last. In life, that means that we put the needs of our service members, our families, and the people that we're responsible before in front of us.
Yeah, that's good. Talk to us about this boxing. How did you get into boxing first? And then let's go back to the smokers, because I remember them back in the 82nd around All-American Week. It was always a big deal. But how did you get into boxing in the beginning?
So my first mentor was a former Army captain. His name is Leonard Williams. Burston Fieldhouse was my first job in Flint, Michigan. And so the Fieldhouse had a fantastic training facility underneath it. What I didn't know is that, it was like I was learning a legitimate skill set. I had a coach at the time that was teaching us the basics. And then I kind of like literally took to it. I didn't care much about education. So it was my way to kind of like vent and learn a skill that made me very relevant in a place that I didn't feel relevant.
So this guy as a captain in the Army who was training you way back when you were in high school?
Yes, it started at age 14, right after I started working at the Fieldhouse. Yes, he had left service, I think, after 9 or 10 years.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So you had Army guys around you all the time. You just didn't know that they were shaping you.
He put us through a program to teach us leadership and how to be different in an environment where we were kind of like set up to fail.
Yeah.
And think about, my eyes as a young E5, or excuse me, a young E4, going through primary leadership development course, and it all clicked for me at that point in time.
21 years of service. Let's talk about your entrepreneur journey, starting out with boots. What's going on with the boots? What were you doing? Were you selling boots in the military? Dan, what was he doing? What?
I don't know. I'd like to hear the story. Were they authorized boots? Or were they,
I don't know. I can't wait to hear this. I
those.
used to be the Army IG, so can't wait to hear this one.
We might.
Yeah.
Oh, this is funny. One of my first businesses started by accident. Another senior leader, I arrived at the 5th Recruiting Brigade. This was around 2012.
Okay.
Prior to that, I was in the DC footprint at the Baltimore Recruiting Battalion.
Nice.
And in 2009, the Nike SFB boots were released. I love these boots. They were like tennis shoes. When we transitioned over to ACUs, they were the most...
They were not authorized.
Dun, dun,
yeah,
dun.
Here we go.
Here we go. Yeah.
But the unfortunate part is I'm a cocksure young Sergeant First Class. I made 7 in 7 years. Nobody can tell me nothing.
Exactly.
So I purchased these boots. I bought them at the post exchange. So to me, they were authorized, right? So I PCS to the 5th Recruiting Brigade. And the moment I walk in process, I got this old crusty senior non-commissioned officer approach me and tell me that, tomorrow when you show up, I don't want you to have those boots on. They're not authorized. And now I'm bothered. I can't believe this is the reception that I'm getting. He's going to walk up to me my first day and correct me about my boots that I've been wearing for years. So I look him in the face and I said, Roger, Sergeant Major. I gave him the typical answer.
Cool.
Cool.
Oh,
And what this started with me, though, is like, I have always pushed authority, because if you're going to lead me, I want to make sure that I'm being led the right way. And so even though our approach wasn't the greatest, what he showed me was that he called me out about my uniform. So what I did was I went back to the PX and I went to clothing sales and I took a picture of every single boot that was being sold. And I came back, I put together this pretty little spreadsheet, and I color coded every single boot based upon the 670-1 on why they were authorized or why they weren't. And I went back to the Sergeant Major and I had to look him in the face and I said, hey, Sergeant Major, you are correct. These boots are not authorized. They're not authorized for this reason. And this Sergeant Major, he took this list that I had created because I was a brigade trainer at that time. So we covered the southwest part of the country. And this was the first document that I had put together in my capacity as a trainer, and he shared it with the entire brigade. So now I have people from all across the command being called out about their boots. And what I realized is that, I had built something that went viral before viral was a thing. It went viral inside the ranks of the Army. And so I was also dabbling on the internet. I learned how to build static websites. And I said, let me do something a little bit more. Instead of creating a list, let me turn this into a website. So I built out my first website, a domain that listed boots and why they were authorized and why they weren't. I heard about this term called affiliate marketing. So affiliate marketing is basically how revenue is generated on the internet. You go to a website, you click a link, somebody's being paid somewhere, somehow. And so I got pulled into a circle where I learned how to embed links onto this site. And so anytime somebody came to the site and they clicked on the Nike SFB boots and went back to Nike.com, I was receiving a commission for the price of the boot that they paid.
What?
And so
you were sergeant first class on active duty still?
On active duty still. And I had a great history of having side hustles over the years. And this was the first one.
Did you know that as a member of AUSA, you have access to many benefits? From car rental to entertainment discounts, the opportunities are ample. Visit us online at ausa.org/benefits to learn more.
Welcome back, everyone, to Army Matters. Let's get back to your time as a recruiter. Tell me, how were you doing with your numbers? And what did you do to influence young men and women to join?
So in my situation, I was sent back home to Flint, Michigan, and I was looked at as a person that was providing opportunity to the people around me. So, I am 21, 22 at this point in time. I was influential just because of the uniform that I wore. I had influence because people looked up to me and they understood that I had done something different. In Flint, in Michigan, really, there's not a lot of military. We have an installation down by Detroit, Selfridge Air National Guard base. There's reserve and guard centers all across the state. But for the most part, we don't have representation. So very early on, recruiting was easy for me. I'm also an introvert. I don't like being in front of people. That's something that I have to force myself to do.
So help us out here. Can you expand on the introverted and extroverted sides of your personality and how this helped you as an influencer and a recruiter?
So I needed to come up with force multipliers. So what I learned from Sergeant Brown was he used me. And so when I was in a delayed entry program, that guy would put me in front of people just to tell my story and my reason for joining. So for me, it was literally a matter of finding, the influential people, whether it's the cheerleader or the jock, right? I would find those guys, I would befriend them, and then I would use them to point me at people that needed the opportunities that the Army was providing. So I learned about, circles of influence. I learned about how to empower others. And most importantly, I learned how to leverage other people's influence to get the things that I needed done. And so for me, I excelled as a recruiter. I excelled as a station commander. I excelled as a company trainer. But eventually I got to a point where I was put in environments and constantly challenged. And then I started to stumble. So recruiting got tough for me as a young sergeant first class in the Baltimore footprint, where I was sent to a recruiting station on Florida Avenue to completely change the demographic. And it wasn't as easy because I was now in a new environment and I didn't have my network to help me supplement the quality of work that I was doing.
So let's talk about where where you landed today or where you are today. So obviously you had this entrepreneurial spirit inside of you, these endeavors that you started. How did that transition to where you are today in the military influencer conference world?
So let's go back to the Boot website. So that website that I built was purchased from me by a boot manufacturer. And so I took the resources that came from that acquisition and I started to look for other military related sites that were relevant in the space, that they were getting traffic for relevant keywords. And I ended up putting myself in a situation where I ran into this Navy submariner. His name is Doug Nordman. They called him Nords. And he was all about this FIRE methodology. Financial independence, retire early. Him and his wife were both in the Navy. They left service right after their retirement and they've never worked again. So I found myself in a position where I acquired his website. Doug continued to write for the site and I just facilitated everything on the background. What this did was it brought me into a relationship with USAA. So with this relationship with USAA, they had an annual event where they brought digital leaders that they brought together to teach them how to advocate for USAA. And so this isn't a plug for the company, it's just stating what they did. But what I learned from this event from 2012 to 2015 were that there were people out there that were just like me, that were incredibly well connected. They produced content with the intention of shaping the minds of the people that they were essentially producing content for. I eventually got to a point where the event was ending and I found myself in a situation where that I wanted to continue this event, but I didn't have the resources to do it. My job at the brigade, I was a brigade trainer. I set up events and activations all across the country with the emphasis of training. And so one day I approached the leaders at USAA and I flat out asked them like, hey, you guys are shutting this down. What would it take for me to kind of like take over it and then move it forward? So the lady, my contact, told me that if this is something you're serious about, you need to put together a pitch deck, you need to come up with an idea, and then we need to come back and talk about it.
So you put together this pitch, you're taking over this conference. So what was the answer from USA?
I bought the domain and essentially I went through this process of rebranding it and rebuilding it. I go back to USAA. The gentleman's name was Mike Kelly. I talked to Mike Kelly and I said, hey, look, I have this idea. I know how to make this work. And the only thing I need from you to make this work is I need $60,000 to make it happen. Mike looked me in the face at that point in time. He pretty much started to chuckle and he said, Curtez, that isn't going to happen. Unfortunately, thank you for your time. And he pretty much showed me the door. But the problem was I had already started telling other people that I was going to do this. And so relationships, right? People have co-signed for me over the years based upon the things that I've done. So I show up, I consistently work, I add value to rooms. And then what ended up happening was inside that circle of influencers from USAA, there was another gentleman named Philip Taylor. Philip Taylor runs an event called FinCon. And FinCon is a conference that's focused on financial marketing. What he did is that he allowed me to take my idea, embed it inside of his event. And so in 2017, that was the formal launch of the Military Influencer Conference. USAA ended up coming back to me after they started to see the marketing, the branding, and how this conference was starting to shape out. And so in 2017, USAA came back. They became my third sponsor, and they helped me to really shape what this event looked like and get it off the ground. We bring influential people together to shape and change what's happening for those that are following in our footsteps.
What is an influencer? It's a leader. Yeah, I get it. But why is it important to the military space?
It's important because we have a responsibility to shape change for those that are following in our footsteps. Naturally, the word influencer has a negative connotation because we automatically assume that this is somebody walking around with a camera, talking about themselves, and at the same time, they're sharing content across social media. In my view, an influencer is nothing more than a leader, and they shape change for those that are following behind us. They lead by example, and they have a vested position of authority that has been earned by the actions and the trust that they've created over a sustained period of time. So, it's one thing the military provides us with a sense of authority. I am a first sergeant. You're going to shut up and listen to me. The moment I take this uniform off, all of that goes out the window. The thing that matters is the people that will still show up based upon my character, my deeds, my actions. So an influencer is someone that's been able to transcend their rank or the natural authority that they've been provided to continue shaping opportunities for those that need it the most.
Yeah, that's good. So First Sergeant, what is building this conference, building your network, and any other entrepreneur things that you've done taught you about veterans and the skills they have when they transition out of service?
For me, I believe in most cases that we are naturally equipped with the soft skills that we need to thrive in a post-military environment. The challenge is that in most cases, I believe that we can't get past ourselves. And so when I was looking at making my transition at 21 years, I knew that my retirement was going to pay me approximately $2,400 a month. I knew that my disability wasn't guaranteed. So instead of trying to sustain the same quality of life and put myself in a position where I had to enter the marketplace that I wasn't exactly ready for, I said at the start of this conversation that I'm not a fan of of education. That's never been something that I've advocated for. I believe skills are more relevant. I believe that skills produce results. I'm not knocking those that are focused on continuing their education and learning. I'm just saying for me, I had a different path. So I know that I was given the skills to build events, to bring people together, and to leverage my relationships to produce results for the people that I needed. We just need to put ourselves in positions or buckets where we can actually afford the quality of life that we want to sustain ourselves with. And in my opinion, learn how to chase happiness to get the results that we need while also understanding how to improve our quality of life.
Yeah. So let's put a plug in here for you, Curtez. When and where is your conference this year?
The 10th anniversary of the Military Influencer Conference is scheduled for the 23rd through the 26th of September in Tampa, Florida. The website is militaryinfluencer.com. You can search it, you can find it, and take a look at who we are, what we do, the type of people that we involve, and most importantly, make a decision on if this is something that you want to participate in.
Are you inviting Dan and I to the Military Influencer Conference?
You know, what I would say, what you guys are doing is absolutely phenomenal. This is the most comfortable podcast I've ever been on. The banter that the two of you have. I would love to see if there's some way that you could do this live. So yes, you have an official invitation and my team will reach out to you.
So what do you hope a young soldier takes away from your story? And what would you tell your 17-year-old self about where you are today?
The first thing I think I would hope that a young soldier would take from my story is that there are alternative ways to find success. We are, as individuals, responsible for our own story. And just because something worked for somebody else doesn't mean that you have to follow that same path or trajectory. My life has been a constant process of pivots. So I use the term a PCS mentality. I was taught in the military that I show up, I perform for 3 years. And then at that end of that tour, I'm going to be sent somewhere else where I have to start over and then essentially continue moving forward to chase success. I think that, I don't want anyone to stall out because they're trying to follow anybody else's journey. And then if I could tell, my 17-year-old self something different, it would be also similar to that. Don't let anyone crush your dreams and tell you what you can't do. I am the founder of the Military Influencer Conference, but somehow, some way, 3,500 people are going to come out and they don't consider themselves influencers, but they show up to this event because what we've managed to build is a grassroots movement that's focused on bringing people together. And for some of us, it's an annual reunion where we have a chance to reconnect with the people that we grew up with.
Curtez, what's your goal? Where do you want to take this?
Where do I want to take this? One thing I haven't done a good job is documenting the people that we've actually influenced and impacted. So a goal for me is now I'm at a point, I'm also at a pivot point for myself. I want to make sure that I go back and I capture some of these stories. So one, it can be documented, but two, we can use this as a legitimate case study to show how an event like this started by a nobody. And I mean that genuinely. I'm a nobody. There's nothing special about me. I want to be in a position where I can take the work, the body of work that we've committed to for the last 10 years and put ourselves in a position where we can become force multipliers to show other people that there's opportunities out there that most other people won't consider.
So if someone came up to you and said, hey, I'm retiring today, what guidance would you give that person?
If I ran across a leader that was retiring from the military, the first thing I would ask him to do was to honestly take a look at his history of service, analyze the skills that he have, and also understand, most importantly, what are the things that are going to make him happy, him or her. Happiness is important to me. What are the things that are going to make you happy? And then let's strategically look at how to merge the two. Don't just jump on a typical bandwagon that I need to leave service and I need to go enter corporate America and I need to chase someone else's institution after serving 20 years in ours.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. First Sergeant, you've done a lot of great things. First, you served the nation, and SMA would know this, but it's really hard to become a First Sergeant too. So you should be proud for that. And you've changed the lives of hundreds, thousands of people that we know of. So we're proud of your service, man.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. One more shout out to our listeners out there. Curtez, give me your best elevator pitch. Why should people come to the Military Influencer Conference? Go.
People should come to the Military Influencer Conference, one, because this is our 10th year. There's a body of work and impact, but most importantly, it's your opportunity to come out, connect, and network with like-minded individuals who are shaping change for the military-connected community. Come be a part of that.
First Sergeant, I agree with Les. You're somebody, buddy, and I'm proud of you. I'm proud to call you a fellow soldier, and I'm proud to see how good you're doing. When the good kid from Flint, Michigan has done good for himself, and that makes people back home proud and all across hometown America. So thank you for what you're doing, and thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, gentlemen.
To all our listeners, thanks for joining us. Army Matters is brought to you by the Association of the United States Army, the U.S. Army's professional association, member-supported, Army-connected. Visit us at ausa.org for more information or to become a member. Your membership helps AUSA continue to carry out its mission, educate, inform, and connect with the total Army, our industry partners, and supporters of a strong national defense. Today's episode was hosted by Lieutenant General Retired Les Smith and SMA Retired Dan Dailey, and anchor hosted by Carrie Barrow-Heckes. Andy Bosnack is the associate producer and supervising sound editor. Major Ryan Crane is the writer, and Ellen Toner is the content editor. Umzinga Curry is the executive producer. Carrie Barrow-Heckes is the senior producer, and Savannah Campbell-Smith is the producer. Be sure to subscribe to Army Matters wherever you get your podcasts, and please leave a review. As you know, we love seeing stars in the Army, especially if it comes in the form of a 5-star review. AUSA's Army Matters podcast can also be heard on Reach Across America Radio on Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern on the iHeartRadio app, the Odyssey app, and the TuneIn app with the search of the word Wreath. For questions or to provide topic recommendations, email us at podcast@ausa.org. AUSA's Army Matters podcast primary purpose is to entertain. The podcast does not constitute advice or services. While guests are invited to listen, listeners, please note that you're not being provided professional advice from the podcast or the guest. The views and opinions of our guests do not necessarily reflect the views of AUSA. I'm LaSharon Duncan, hoping you have a great Army day. Hooah!